Hey everyone, TA Sam here. We're here with part 6 of our 8-part Microsoft Word introduction. This video is going to cover inserting figures, tables, and equations into your document. This video borrows heavily upon our styles video. So if you didn't watch that, that was part 4. So please go back and watch that if anything here confuses you. So this is just on the main document we left off in part 5. You can see we have all of our sections in. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go in and put some tables and figures and equations in. Um, I already went ahead and did that to save some time in the video. I have to excuse my word, it's stopping a lot tonight, so there might be some weird breaks in this video where I pause the video until it unfreezes. So a main rule of thumb when you're putting figures and tables in, so these can include graphs like I have here. These can also include, like as I said, figures. So this could be, an experimental apparatus that you draw out or that you find from a publisher. It could be an image of like a site if you're doing like a project and where you're going to build it. It could be an image of a device you're using. It could be a whole bunch of things. Here I just have two graphs for examples just to show you two different things. But the generally accepted rule of thumb, and of course this could vary, but it should be about 1/3 of the page. There's another rule of thumb. Some people say it should go, completely fill your margins of the page. So that might work for this one where, if we zoom out, you can see that this isn't, it's maybe 1/3 of the page, but if we stretch it out, to the full margin, we're not losing much. And the big idea that you want is you want everything to be readable. So you don't want to put a graph in here and not be able to read it. You don't want an image in here and not be able to make out the details. You want it to be readable. So in terms of actually inserting the images in, I took both of these from an Excel sheet, which I think is why my document's being so laggy, because the Excel sheet I took them from is absolutely massive. But there are some cool features you can get from doing that. And so by copy and pasting it in directly from Excel as a graph and not as like a snipping tool, like you're taking it as an image, what that allows you to do is if you click on it, you can then edit the graph. And so this can be most useful in terms of data points. Let's say I wanted to change how these look. I could, right click on the data series and go, format the data series. So let's say that I have these right now as, I don't know if I was on the square. Let's see, which one did I pick on? Yeah, I took the square, so let's say instead of a square, I want to change that to a triangle. I can go and do that, and it's going to take my computer a minute to update. And you can see that those all change automatically. Now, I did the same thing down here with the pie chart. I could do the same thing. I'm not going to. Give me a second here. I'm going to just take a snipping tool shot of this and replace it because I think having a link to that big Excel sheet is really draining my computer. Okay, sorry about that. I just, unlinked them. And just to be very clear, it's not the linking that caused the computer issue. It's just that the spreadsheet I drew these from, I did a Six Sigma certification over the summer, and I had a project with a lot of data, and that the size of the spreadsheet just kills my computer. So every time, I was moving the graph around, it had to drop from that spreadsheet, and that was what was causing all that problems. So I also updated it while it was loading, the fill the margin rule, so you can either go, so like you see here, we just dragged until it kind of filled the margin. It wasn't quite 1/3 of the page, but this one was taking up about 1/3 of the page without filling the margin, so we're going to keep it at 1/3. Now, most figures and graphs, and of course there are exceptions, but your rule of thumb should be that everything should be centered. So you could click on it, go Control E because we want to get fast, or you could go up here out of the center, and same thing here. I'm going to turn our friend back on so we can see the spacing. You're really going to want that. I'm going to delete these out. So I'm going to show you, so there's a very basic way you could do this, and you can literally just put an enter in, and if you remember previously, we created a figure label, and if you didn't do that, please go back, watch the styles video, and you can do that, and then we can enter figure 1, we'll just call it graph 1, why not? And we could go do the same thing for this one, but I want to show you a more advanced way to do it, and really highlight the merit of doing it. So that's your very basic way. But there's another feature, and we're going to go over to our References tab. And so let's say we're doing our figure label here. We'll set it up for a figure label. But if you go to the References, you're going to see over here a citation and a caption. We'll focus on this in a later video, but here I want to go to the caption. So just humor me for a second. I want you to have two figures in it so you can follow along with me. And on your second figure, go Insert Caption. Now, the default's going to be for figures. And if you look at labels, your defaults are going to be, I think, equation, figure, and table. If you don't have these in here, you can go new label and then call it figure or whatever you want to do. Those might be because I've done that previously. But again, go to new label to create these, and your default's going to be, figure 1. And if you want to go to number 8, you can change that to, let's say you could do figure A. Really whatever you want to do. You could do a chapter number. Chapter starts with that. There's all kinds of things you can do. Again, we're just going to go figure 1 here. Keep it basic. Sorry, didn't turn that setting off. Excuse me. So figure 1, and we're just going to call it graph 1. But if you notice, there's no space in between here, so you want to keep a constant spacing in. I personally like to use a semicolon and a space. Other people like to go space hyphen. The most important thing, this is with anything, is just stay consistent in your formatting. So I'm going to stay with my hyphen because I like that, or my semicolon or my full colon, and we're just going to call it graph 1 because that's our label. And then we're going to hit OK, and you're going to see it's going to insert a reference in there. Now that looks a little ugly, so we're going to go over and we're going to hit our figure label, and then there it's labeled. Now we're going to do the same thing up here with the top one. So create another space. Again, go back over references, insert caption, and we're going to call this one, I don't know, graph 2. And go back over to our home tab, hit the figure label, and you can see we have figure 1 and figure 2. You notice how even though we did this one first, as soon as we inserted a figure above it, it auto-updated itself. Now, what's really nice about that is that, let's say you have 20, figures in your report, and this happened to me. You're doing a paper and you have 25 figures in, and all of a sudden you're told, hey, I think we should include another picture in our introduction. So if you label these out, by hand, you did, figure 1, and you kept going throughout your document, you have to then relabel, your 20 figures in your document by hand, not to include all the times you reference those in the text. So doing it this way saves you a lot of renumbering as you go along, and you really don't have to worry about it. And we're actually going to undo that. Take your second graph or your first graph off, just hit your Control-Z a couple times because I want to show you another cool feature. So let's say we're up here and we're talking about our text. So if you want to reference your text, you could say as seen in, and then you're going to talk about your figure. We can go over to references, then go to cross-reference, and then over here you can see what you're referencing. So these are all the different ones you made. So you can reference, header, bookmark, whatever, footnote, and if you scroll down, you're going to see all your custom ones. So we want to reference a figure, and you're going to have a couple options to reference the entire caption, which will reference figure 1, graph 1. But more useful, and this is more common, is only the label and the number. So this will only reference figure 1, which is what you want to be doing in your referencing. So you could say as seen in figure 1, and then there's our reference, and it shows blah, whatever you're talking about, figure 1. So now let's go back in and put another reference in for what we're calling graph 2, this one up here. And again, we're trying to get fast with our keyboards, and this is important because if you're not on your keyboard on this, it will slow you down. But if you are on your keyboard, it will speed you up. So you're going to go Alt, S for references, P for caption, and then you write it out. So we call this one graph 2. And we hit OK. Alt H L and hit our figure label so we don't have to pick our mouse up. And then there we go, there's our label. Now, we want to reference, and this is where I'm going to show you. So we have as seen in figure 1 down here. And again, when we were talking about figure 1 originally, we were talking about graph 1 down here. I know this gets a little confusing. But now our graph 1 is figure 2. So we really want to be talking about in figure 1, it shows here, we're talking about this. But what we really wanted to talk about was this. And I'm going to put in another reference to our new figure. This will show you it doesn't mess anything up. So we'll say as shown in, and then we'll reference this one. And this is where you go Alt S R F for cross-reference. And then we only want to reference the label and the number. And again, you can tab over and do all this and just scroll down and hit, that's the one again, graph 1 is our pie chart. Graph 2 is our communication. And so we can hit figure 1, graph 1. And so we're both talking about figure 1 here, but again, these are two different graphs. And then blah, blah, blah. So there's a way you can update your fields, and I'm just going to show you the hotkey because I think that's the easiest way to do it. And the hotkey for it is F9. Now, the most useful way to do this is in combination with Control A. And what Control A does, if you hit that now, you'll see it highlights your entire document. So Control A highlights your entire document, and F9 updates fields. Because how Word handles these are all field codes, and you can look into those more if you want to. It's a little outside the depth of this video. But if you do want to show those fields, all you have to do is hit Alt F9. And then there you can see there's the field codes in there. You can see how it does it, but we don't want to look at that. So you can hit Alt F9 and turn those back off. So again, we're going to hit Control A, F9, and my computer is going to go through a little bit of loading. And you can see that it updated figure 1, figure 2. So undo that, you can see what it said originally. We both have figure 1, redo it, you can see figure 1, figure 2. And so this saves you the trouble of having to relabel as you go along. And so between having our built-in style for our labels and having referencing built in, you can save a lot of time. And again, as we were talking about in the text, it can take a little while to go references, cross-reference, scroll down and hit it. But again, if you get it down, you can go Alt S, RF, tab, 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 tab. There you go. Sorry about that. And you'll get it. I haven't done it in a little while, but once you're doing it a lot in a report, you'll get it down pretty fast. And you can do it just like that. So this video went a little longer than I expected. We had a couple of things to get through, so I'm actually going to split this part 6 up into 2 videos. Figures, tables, and equations are all part of the same, your 3 heads of the same monster. So I guess the second part of this specific video will cover our tables and figures, or tables and equations, excuse me. And those will be a lot of the same skills we learned here. So as always, like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave a comment, and I'll help you out. Otherwise, I hope you're really able to use this and save some time in your longer reports. It might take, maybe a couple extra minutes early on, but it'll save you a lot during your reviewing process when you're adding and changing around the order of figures and tables.